Hound of the Baskervilles, Chapter 3. Sir Henry Baskerville. When I returned to 221B Baker Street that evening, the place was so full of smoke that I thought there must be a fire inside. But the smoke was all from Holmes' pipe, which he used whenever he needed to think hard about a problem. "Have you been here all the time, Holmes?" I asked. "Physically, yes, but in my mind I have been in Devon most of the day. I have been studying maps." He unrolled a large one. "This is Baskerville Hall in the centre. You can see the trees around it and the moor, of course. The closest village is Grimpen, where Dr. Mortimer lives. There are only a few buildings nearby. I think this house here must be where the naturalist Stapleton lives. There are some farms, and there is a prison called Princetown about 14 miles away. It is a wild place. It is. Just the place for the devil to act." "Then you believe this may be supernatural?" "No," said Holmes firmly, "but the devil's work can be done by ordinary people. We have two questions to answer. First, we must decide if any crime has been committed at all. Second, we must decide what the crime was and how it was committed. Have you thought about the case at all, Watson?" "I have, quite a lot," I said. "It is most confusing." "It is certainly interesting," said Holmes with satisfaction. "For example, the footprints which changed from normal to someone walking on their toes. Clearly, Sir Charles was running so desperately that his heart failed and he fell down dead. The question is, what was he running from? And why did he run away from the house instead of towards it? And who was he waiting for?" "Why do you think he was waiting for someone?" "He was old, not healthy, and the weather was cold and wet. Why else would he stand for 5 or 10 minutes at the gate? These are the questions I have in my mind. Perhaps we shall have more answers when we meet Dr. Mortimer and Sir Henry Baskerville in the morning." At 10 o'clock the next morning, Dr. Mortimer and Sir Henry Baskerville arrived punctually. Sir Henry was a small, dark-eyed man, around 30 years of age, strongly built and energetic. "Good morning," said Sir Henry. "It is a funny thing, Mr. Holmes, but I have a little puzzle for you. I understand you like such things." "Well, this morning something strange happened to me. A joke, I suppose. You see, I received this letter." He put an envelope on the table. It was addressed to Sir Henry Baskerville, Northumberland Hotel, and the postmark told us that it had been posted the evening before in Charing Cross. "Who knew which hotel you were in?" asked Holmes. "No one. We chose the hotel after I met Dr. Mortimer." "Are you staying in the hotel, Dr. Mortimer?" "No," answered Mortimer. "I am staying with a friend." "Intriguing," said Holmes. "Someone is very interested in you, Sir Henry." The letter itself had just one sentence. It read, "If you value your life, keep away from the moor." The words were all cut from newspapers apart from the last. Moor was written by hand. "All of these words are from an article in the Times yesterday," said Holmes, "about free trade, if I remember correctly. Of course, the word moor is an unusual word, and no doubt was not in the paper, so the author of the letter had to write it themselves." "How could you know that?" demanded Sir Henry. The words "keep away" and "from there" are cut out in one piece, because this is how they are in article. I can recognize the style of type used in the Times quite easily. Amazing, said Mortimer. Can you say anything about the author? The words were cut out with the nail scissors. See how short the cuts are, and glued onto the paper. Notice that the address is written very roughly. Clearly the person tried to hide their handwriting, as if they thought you might recognize it. It may, therefore, be someone you know. The words are not neatly glued, so I would say that the author of the letter was in a hurry. I can also see that they used a pen which had very little ink in it. I would guess that this was written in a hotel. Hotel pens often do not have enough ink, and the person was hurrying because they did not want to be interrupted. Tell me, Sir Henry, has any other strange thing happened to you since you arrived in London? Has anyone followed you or watched you? No, said Sir Henry hotly. Why would anyone follow me? Nothing unusual has happened, unless you count losing a boot. A boot, said Holmes. How did this happen? Well, I bought a new pair of brown boots when I arrived, and left them outside my hotel room last night to be cleaned. In the morning there was only one. Interesting. A single boot is not a very useful thing to steal, said Holmes. Well, Dr. Mortimer, I think you should tell Sir Henry the story that you told us last night. Mortimer told Sir Henry the whole story, just as he had told us. Well, said Sir Henry when Mortimer finished, that's a quiet story. I've heard the legend before, but I've never taken it seriously. I don't know what to think. And then there's the letter I received as well. Holmes nodded. Yes, someone knows about your situation. And it seems they are friendly, or else what would they warn you to be careful? They might be trying to scare him, pointed out Mortimer. Yes, that is also possible, said Holmes, though he did not look convinced. Well, the first thing to decide is whether or not you should go to Baskerville Hall. It may be dangerous. Dangerous? Mr. Holmes, there is no devil or a man who will stop me from going to my family home. But I do need to think about all this. Could you and Dr. Watson come to my hotel at lunchtime, say 2 o'clock? Certainly. Holmes waited until our guests left, and then jumped up, full of energy. Quickly, Watson, he cried. Get your hat and your boots. We ran outside and followed Sir Henry and Dr. Mortimer down the street. After a short time we saw a cab moving very slowly behind our guests. But before we could reach it, the cab's passenger saw us and raced away. All I saw was a bushy black beard and some piercing eyes, and then the cab and its passenger were gone. Who was that, Holmes? I have no idea. It was obvious that someone was following Sir Henry. I looked out of the window twice while Dr. Mortimer was telling his story, but I could not see anyone. He is clever, whoever he is, because in a cab he could escape. But he has made a mistake. I saw the number of the cab, 2704. Did you see the man's face? Only the beard. Yes, probably a disguise. Well, time to do some investigating. Holmes led us into a courier's office, where the manager greeted him warmly. Ah, Wilson, said Holmes. Good to see you again. And you, Mr. Holmes, I haven't forgotten how you helped me. You saved my reputation and maybe my life. Oh, you exaggerate. But now perhaps you can help me. You have a boy working for a Colt Cut, right? I remember. A clever boy. Please call him. Cartwright was a bright, keen boy, about 14 years old. He listened carefully to Holmes, staring at the famous detective with wide eyes. "Here are the addresses of 23 hotels, Cartwright," said Holmes. "You will go to each. Give the porter a shilling, here is the money, and ask him to let you see the rubbish from the hotel rooms from yesterday. Tell him that you are looking for a lost telegram. You are really looking for a page from the Times. This page." Holmes showed the boy the page from our copy. "If you find it, it will have pieces cut out of it. You will probably not find it, but please try." Cartwright ran off and Holmes turned to me. "Well, Watson, now we must discover who cabman number 2704 is. After that we can have a pleasant lunch at Sir Henry's Hotel." The end of chapter 3.